See, it's 8 o'clock.
All right,
All
it's 12
right.
o'clock.
12 o'clock or 8 o'clock or wherever you're coming in from.
12
Welcome
o'clock for
today.
me. I'm not in the States, that's why.
That's midnight,
We're
12
all
o'clock.
across the globe.
Yes.
Your presenters are coming from, the three of us are coming from different places around the globe right now.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, and feel free to add where you're coming in from in the chat as we get started. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This webinar is provided by ENSULIB. That's IFLA's Environment, Sustainability, and Libraries section. Today's webinar is Sustaining a Seed Library, Borrowing Procedures and Donations from the Community. This webinar is helpful for anyone looking to start or enhance their seed library. It covers how to create clear lending guidelines, promote seed returns, and evaluate donated seeds. You'll also get some practical advice on community engagement and building a diverse, resilient collection. It's full of actionable tips and simple ways to boost participation. My name is Beth Filer-Williams. I am a standing committee member of ENSULIB, and I'm also a user experience research librarian at Oregon State University Libraries. So I'm going to tell you a quick bit about ENSULIB. ENSULIB aims to encourage libraries and librarians to inspire their communities into more environmentally sustainable ways of action. By providing materials on green librarianship, giving voice to projects such as webinars like the one today, and recordings of others. So if you missed one, we have recordings online. We do events and conference sessions, and we offer many resources translated into many languages, such as our Green Library definitions, checklist, posters, and tools. If you see a language that is yours that you do not see in our list, please reach out. We love to have people help us translate. We just wrapped up a book project called Libraries Driving Education for Sustainable Development. We manage the Green Library Awards through IFLA. And many of these projects that I'm mentioning, we ask for volunteers to assist. So please reach out if you're interested in helping in any of these. You can also join our mailing list and receive our newsletter that comes out every 6 months. And consider sharing your own story for our newsletter. We'll put some of those links in the chat in a minute. But I wanted to introduce Vivian Bird, who's co-facilitating and assisting with the tech today, who's a citizen science initiative librarian at Los Angeles Public Library.
Hi, everybody, and I'm going to give you a little bit of spiel on about our webinar series today. So the event is being recorded, except for the breakout rooms, which we won't have today. Ooh, that slide disappeared. Okay, there we go, including chats. And the video will be posted on YouTube, and the link will be posted on ENSULIB's website or webpage, and also on our Facebook and our LinkedIn, pretty much all of our social media channels. The chat and the Q&A proceedings will not be recorded nor published. Microphones has been muted for this event. And for all the comments, please type into the chat. And we encourage you to use the Q&A button for all the questions that you have for our speakers today. And the Q&A session will follow the presentation. And if you have any questions regarding privacy, please go ahead and send an email to ifla.org. It's professional support at ifla.org. And this talk is GDPR compliant, and IFLA and Zoom privacy policies. We have the 2 links on the slide right now that you can take a look if you're interested.
All right, so we're just getting ready to get started with the reason that you're here. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker. Rebecca Newburn is a prominent advocate for seed conservation and community engagement. She's played a pivotal role in the growth and popularization of seed libraries. Co-founder of the Richmond Grows Seed Lending Library and founder of the Seed Library Network, Rebecca has been instrumental in creating resilient and replicable models for seed libraries across the globe. Through her initiative, she's championed the importance of preserving plant biodiversity, promoting sustainable agriculture practices, and fostering community collaboration. So we're thrilled to have her today for this 90-minute session. Plenty of information and time for Q&A at the end. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. Glad to be here. And I'm going to need to share my screen. Okay, so now you're not showing. Okay. Wonderful. I'm so happy to be here today and to get to share about seed libraries. I know there's so many seed libraries in libraries around the world, and just to be able to collaborate and share some of the things that people are doing and kind of continue to kind of grow the resources and strengthen kind of what we're doing and inspire each other is just such a wonderful opportunity. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview of where we're going to kind of go today. So first off, just kind of an introduction of, the Seed Library Network, the Seed Library, kind of work that's going on. We'll talk a little bit about setting up and borrowing procedures. That includes like borrowing guidelines, signage, what does that look like? How do you go about educating people to return seeds? And then what might a procedure for seed returns look like? And then what happens when you actually get seeds? What legal concerns are there, if any? How do we go about and actually increase locally donated seeds or just donations from other sources as well as when you do get seeds, how do you ensure that there are things that you want to put in your collection or not? And then we'll have, as Beth and Viv mentioned, a little Q&A and wrap up at the end. So first off, the Seed Library Network, kind of basically what happened was I created the Richmond Grows Seed Lending Library. So that is a local seed library in the public library where I live. And I got the idea because the oldest seed library in the kind of current modern sense is in Berkeley, which is the town next to where I live. And I just love this idea of like, wow, people can go, there's this in an ecology center, so it's more of a kind of a green space. And I was like, this is such a wonderful idea that every community should have a seed library. And I really wanted to create it in a way that any community could just easily start one up for themselves. So I created the Richmond Grow Seed Lending Library with that idea of creating it as a replicable model. And I spoke with people at the Berkeley Ecology Center at Basel, is the name of their seed library, the Bay Area Seed Interchange Library, and worked with them to kind of figure out what might be a structure that people could use. And very shortly, the idea really just kind of blossomed and kind of spread like wildflowers. And within a year, there were 12 other towns right in our area that opened up seed libraries. So I kind of started collecting other names of seed libraries that were starting up, and that just kind of developed into a list, which eventually had 2,600 communities that were that were interested in starting libraries. And we started to kind of meet regularly in our area, which ended up turning into the Seed Library Summit, which we do. And people were originally coming to the Richmond Grows seeds.org website for information, but it didn't seem like the correct place anymore because there were so many resources being developed. So that kind of spread out to creating the Seed Library Network.org website. And we just recently did a complete reboot on that. So if you've gone in maybe 2 years ago, if you've been around for a while, I would definitely recommend looking at the new website. We have just a lot more resources, hopefully easier to find things because there's just a ton of resources, and it'll be easier for you to find things now the way that we've restructured it. And one of the reasons I'm really grateful here to be at IFLA with you folks today is because we got a grant recently through the Sustainable Initiative to translate all of our resources into English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. And our website is also translatable. So now there's a lot more information that's available. And the way that we're sharing is that a lot of them are things that you can just make a copy and then take them, tweak them, and make them your own, or you can just print them out as they are and use them. So we'll talk a little bit about those resources that are going on there. And then the other thing I want to say is we took our list of 2,600 communities and we, about 2 years ago, translated that into a map. So you can, if you haven't put yourself on the map, you can explore the map from our website to see if someone already did it for you, or you did it and you forgot, or you can just, you could go to the bit.ly/seed library map and then kind of add yourself to that. It only takes about 5 minutes to put yourself on there, and a little bit more if you want to answer some questions about needs and resources. So those are some of the ways to kind of connect with people and find out a little bit more about, if you're in an academic library, you can kind of look for icons and see, look, there's other academic libraries. And so it allows you to kind of connect with people and see what types of things they're doing in their own community. So it's a great way to kind of be able to find people in your own bioregion and things like that. And then we also offer a forum. So if you have questions, that's a really nice way, besides our social media platforms, to just specifically ask, I have this resource that I'd like to share, or I have a question, and then you can kind of get that answered by the community. And then we also have a Substack newsletter that comes out very irregularly. And we also have a conference. It was annually, but now that we're online, it takes a lot more organizing versus our kind of short little meeting. And so we are going to be having a conference coming up soon, which I will hopefully put through the IFLA ENSULIB listserv, but it's going to be a 3-day conference online. We're going to have one day that's just specifically for new to seed library people, and then we're going to have 2 more days for advanced topics. We don't know when that's going to be, sometime in 2026, but just be paying attention to that, and we're excited to be kind of being able to kind of pull all these resources together. So let's jump in. So first off, let's talk about establishing borrowing guidelines. This is really, there's so many. With the thing about seed libraries, one thing that I love is the diversity of seed libraries. There's everything from shoeboxes to really large collections that you need, that have interlibrary loans through library cards. So there's no one way that works for a community. So you need to know what your limitations are, what your aspirations are, and then kind of build out from there, maybe taking some initial steps now, and then kind of where do we go from here? So one of the things is just establishing what your borrowing guidelines are. And that's going to depend on the size of your collection, how many, what's your ability to kind of energy to put into this. For example, I am a middle school science teacher. I work full time and I run 2 nonprofits. So what I loved the way that Basil did theirs. It was self-serve. And I was like, that works for me. And sometimes that library went through fallow stages where there wasn't a lot of activity, and then people got re-engaged. But the thing that was beautiful about it was that it was able to survive for 15 years through all of those ups and downs, until the rest of us kind of woke up to like, wow, this is a great idea to have a seed library. And so it's still going 20 some years later. So for me, pre-packing doesn't really work because that just takes a lot of energy. But for many communities, pre-packing is such a great idea because you get to put the specific amount of seeds in a package, which ensures that you can spread that quantity out to a lot more people. But it does require time commitment, and yet at the same point, packing parties are a great way to bring people together, and they pack and they have conversations around gardening and really kind of build that community. So there's a lot of benefit to pre-packing, but you just need to know what your goals are, and also your kind of time commitments, and kind of what your volunteer or your ability of your staff to do, can manage that. We do all jars, and that's for a couple, and ours is all self-serve. Once again, we were in the public library for 15 years. Our library is being renovated right now, so we just moved to the recreation center for 2 years while that's happening. So all of our stuff is in jars. As I said, one of the reasons we do that is because it takes a lot of work to pre-pack. Another thing that happened was many years ago, about 6 or 7 years ago, we had a mice infestation in the public library, and they ate through our entire collection during the wintertime when people weren't really planting a lot. And we decided that glass was a really good thing at that point. And then also, yeah, it was a sad moment. But what's great about that is, and I'll just show you some examples. So this is just a baby food jar, but we have it. And what's nice is when we have the jars, we can put on the information on the top so people can see from above what's in everything. And then we also have on our jars, and I'll go into this a little bit more later as well, is we tell people, we want you to take 2 to 3 seeds for every plant you intend to grow. So that helps to kind of educate people about quantities. So we have some posters that you can download. And once again, these, if you have Canva, you can go on and actually take them and do your own branding. So you've got the general template and you can redesign it. But basically, you want to educate people. If people are taking stuff for themselves, take only what you plan on growing, 2 to 3 seeds for every larger plant, like a squash or a fava bean or a bean, and like a pinch of smaller stuff. So once again, that education piece is a really big piece if you are letting people self-select, because otherwise, as we know, people can take a lot and then all of a sudden everything's gone really quickly. So with that, as I said, those are some of the suggested amounts. The thing that I was just showing you is from a thing called the auto wrapper. And so you can see it on here. This is an example. It's a spreadsheet that a man from Wisconsin, which is one of our states, created. And we have taken this base template that he created and we put 70 common species on it. So on the spreadsheet, it says amaranth, there's a scientific name. It tells you how to plant it. It tells you if it needs sun. It tells you the seed saving requirements. So it gives you recommendations about how much should either be pre-packed if someone's pre-packing or how much people should take. And then the only thing you need to put is the variety information, copperhead, the year, and then if you want to have a description about that particular variety so people know what they're getting. And then next year when I go to plant this, I just need to press 2026 and print it out. And what's beautiful about this, so I'm just going to I know you can't see all of this, but we have a version that's, 6. So that would go on kind of an envelope of this side here. So that's an envelope of this size. We have the same information. You can print it out with all this. And this just pretty much goes into varietal information and year. We have another variety, same size, that has more planting instructions for people that maybe aren't familiar how to plant it. This would be focusing on that because maybe everybody knows what cilantro is and they don't need the varietal description, but they need more planting instructions. So you can have, and we just cut these out and we just stick them in the jars. And then people can just take that. So you get high quality labels without all the pre-packing. And then here's another one that works on more of the smaller seed envelopes. And we are working on getting these. We do only have at this point one version that's on an A4. So all of these are 8.5 by 11s, which is the size of paper we use in the United States. But we are working on the ones for A4 papers, but I think some of these probably would work on A4, especially if you're not having pre-cut stuff. So this is just a game changer in terms of labeling. And we're really hoping that people that are super interested in this, take it, add to it, share it out with other people. It was a lot of work to create this document with 70 common varieties, but maybe you're interested in natives and then you create something like this for a native seed library that you have, and you can share it with other people in your bioregion. So we do have means to share that, and I'll talk about how to share resources with the community so that we can easily, accelerate this process. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is signage. So I'm a middle school science teacher, and in this process of redesigning our website and switching from a list to a map, one of the things we asked people to do was upload photos of their seed libraries. And it was completely lovely and inspiring to see all these beautiful seed libraries, from small little containers to these big, beautiful art collections, that were hand painted by a local artist. And I went, as I'm creating the website, to look for different resources that we can highlight. And I saw a lot of great signage about how to borrow. So I think seed libraries have done a great job of take these seeds, take them home and plant them, return them. But that part of how do you label the seed packet when you take it, and then how do you donate it, that donating part in particular, there was not a lot of signage about how to do that and what that might look like and what do you accept. In terms of the labeling piece, if you are letting people whether you're doing it yourself or whether you are letting people take stuff out of an envelope and write their own information on their envelope, it would be good to have some signage about minimum requirements. So the minimum requirements you would like to have on your envelope is the common name, the variety, the year, and then you want the year because seeds have a limited lifespan. And so if I plant something and it didn't grow well for me, I can kind of then check with like, oh, was that an issue because this was older seed and I should have just planted a little bit older, or it's not viable anymore, or was that more of a user error and I didn't water it sufficiently or it got eaten by bugs? And then you also, it's a good idea to get in the habit of getting the grower's name. And once again, you might want to do that on the back end and it doesn't get shared publicly. You have to decide what works for you. One of the reasons we think it's a good information to collect when you get donations, at least, and we'll talk about that, is just people are in different growing capacities in terms of their skill knowledge. So sometimes that helps to also write that down, whether this is a professional grower or a local grower. So when you're collecting, when you're taking the seeds, to have that information as well. Now, this is some of the signage that you might want to think about when people are donating. And I've created, and I'll talk a little bit more about later, but I've created a whole thing about what do you want from your, like, what is your process of donating? So I have it linked into the presentation, but it will also be sent out to you with the notes from the video. So there'll be a questionnaire about what process, like a process that you can go through with your library to discuss what does donating look like for you and what are you willing to accept. This is what we have in our library, and I feel like I need to even go back and kind of polish this up a little bit. So we just have a little box. So just the fact that it's a little box tells you we're not accepting a bag of unclean seeds because it doesn't fit in that box. So ours is kind of a little checklist of what we are looking for. Are the seeds cleaned and dry? And once again, if they're wet, they might, obviously mold. If they're not cleaned properly, that extra kind of chaff, that extra part of the seed can absorb more moisture, which can limit the life of the seed. And then also just kind of might be more places for little bugs and everything to live. And then also we're only accepting seeds from heirloom, open pollinated, and landrace mixes. So a landrace, there's kind of the landrace, which is traditional to a people. So for example, this parsley that I have here, it's a Hungarian landrace. So if you were to go to Hungary, there are probably some region in that country that this grows as one of the crops that they have selected over time. It's adapted to their climate, it's adapted to their soils, it's adapted to their culinary preferences. It's different from a commercial new variety where it's like everything's going to be ready to produce for market in 45 days and it's very uniform. So there's a lot more diversity in the way it looks in its growing cycle. So there's the traditional landrace mixes that we often we are accepting in our seed library, but we're also working a lot with modern land races. So this is a modern land race where it's actually a mix of a number of different fava beans. And so one of the things, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, but it's one of these strategies around adapting for climate variabilities. However, what we don't accept in our donation, and once again, you can take this sign, this is a downloadable sign on our website, is we don't accept commercial hybrids. And one of the reasons we don't accept commercial hybrids is because some of the commercial hybrids, and it's on the poster on the right there, some of them are bred for male sterility. And so you could introduce unintentionally sterility into your line if people were saving them or it contaminated someone else's crop who was growing something close by. And then obviously no GMOs. Once again, GMOs are not really part of the home gardening piece so much. And then we really strongly discourage selecting anything that is patented. In the United States, it's not technically illegal for a seed library to do it, but we just strongly discourage it. And that also just kind of honors the seed breeders who are doing traditional breeding to kind of honor their work. And then also just saving from healthy plants. So asking people, did you save these from healthy plants? Did you save them from as many plants as possible? So once again, if you're saving from multiple plants, it's more likely to, this plant might have been more able to manage a pest pressure. And this plant over here might be more able to deal with a heat dome or some type of extended heat pressure. And so if you save seeds from a variety of plants, there might be something in that mix that's able to deal with something that nature throws your way or that comes your way in the garden. So that's why we do that. And then there's also certain species where you need a number of plants in order to actually get pollination. For example, the brassicas like broccoli and all that need a multiple number of plants to actually be pollinated. And then labels need to be filled in correctly. So once again, as I said, kind of common name, variety name, species name, year. And then obviously the more information people include, the better it is so that people can make choices that are going to work for their space and their preferences. And we do have on here, if you want to see our library template, that I have a paper template from an older version, you can see the tinyurl.com/RG for Richmond Grows envelope. And as I said, for ours, we have that sign and it says put it in the yellow box. So it kind of clearly says we're not taking big bags of unclean seeds. We do take them, but we don't take them at the library. So we have a different process for dealing with that. And then on the right-hand side is a poster that we encourage people to post if you've kind of decided that you're open to a little bit more diversity. I live in an, somewhat urban setting, and a lot of people in this community are from Central America and grow corn. If we were to accept corn, it's going to be genetically diverse because it wind pollinates. And so do we decide to accept that or not? You have to decide. For us, a lot of people like greens, but a lot of the greens wind pollinate, or sorry, insect pollinated. And I can't guarantee that my kale is not going to be cross-pollinated by someone else's kale or broccoli or something like that. So we accept them, but we just label them diverse. And so this sign here can be used as two different ways. This embrace diversity sign. It can be used to help you as you get local donations. Is this something you want to, if you're trying to keep very kind of like everything's labeled exactly like this is wall-time butternut squash. I know it's wall-time butternut squash. I'm putting it in with high certainty that it's wall-time butternut squash. Then, if that's kind of the route you go, you might not want to put in just someone who labeled that unless you know them, because right here under the very likely diverse, it says squash. So if you don't know that grower and they scooped out the seeds from that, it may not be that. So one of the ways you can use this sign is you can put it in the sign and you can put it in your library to say, if you are getting common beans, peas, sweet peas, lettuce, tomato, wheat, these things are likely as labeled. So I'm putting in any common bean you get in here is probably what it says it is. However, when you get down to the corn or the sunflower, someone said it was the sunflower. So I got like a Hopi dye sunflower from a seed swap years ago. And I was really excited because I was getting into natural dyes. I planted this huge section of sunflowers in my garden that I got from this seed swap. And the next year, not a single plant had that property of being a dye plant. And it was because it's insect pollinated, and obviously insects came from somewhere else and pollinated that sunflower, and I got zero dye plant. And so once again, we still share sunflowers. I share tons of sunflowers, but I just label them very likely diverse. So we have even a sign that says diverse mix. And so someone's going to know they're going to get a sunflower, but it may not be like the parent plant. And so those are things that you can use this sign to educate people about how to decide if they want to borrow that, because it may not be as labeled. And you can also use that as a way of like, we only want to stick things with things that are labeled and we're going to not include those. So that's a choice that you have to make as a seed library. Okay, procedures, seed returns. So obviously, people start in their seed library journey in different places. Most people and most seed libraries, for example, ours, we started originally with mostly commercial donations. When we first got started, we were really lucky. We had a number of commercial seed companies who gave us, donations. But we were very concerned in our community around food security and reducing hunger. And as a result, our interest and also climate concerns and just the general health of our community, because we have a number of spaces that are food deserts, we really wanted to make sure we were having local seed, because I knew that in this larger sustainability kind of conversation, that seed really is at the basis of food supply chain. And if we're relying on our seeds coming from somewhere else, then we have a very faulty foundation in which to kind of have a strong food system. So that might be a way that a reason why you want to build towards having more seed returns. Obviously, also the other thing is sustainable financially. It's sustainable financially. If you are in the habit of having to purchase seeds, you're relying on those donations, that fund or that line item is going to be in your budget repeatedly. The other thing about local seed is these are varieties that work in your area. Where I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, we have lots of microclimates. It is a very foggy area. Trying to go, like, I love Brandywine tomatoes, and I remember my first couple years moving here, I had no success. I had one year where I got a couple tomatoes. It was just like such a dud. And then someone told me, like, you can't grow brandywines here. Like, this is too big of a tomato. So we can grow smaller, more kind of the Siberian and kind of the Eastern European kind of tomatoes, but we can't grow large beefsteak tomatoes. And that was something. So having tomatoes that work well in this climate are really important. And obviously, as we have more things occurring in terms of global weirding and climate pressures, being able to adapt those crops to a rapidly changing world are going to be incredibly important. And as I mentioned, one of the things I'm really excited about is the partnership we have with Going to Seed. So if you are interested, going to seed.org, and I'll put this in the resources that I share out after the presentation. They are working with these modern land races, and you can just see the beauty in this. And once again, when you are shelling beans and you open up these fava beans and they're just all different colors. Actually, my earrings are from that collection. So we're actually giving out earrings as a thank you gift to some of the people that are volunteering with us, and we're giving them this with a packet of these seeds so they can actually like wear the earrings and then also grow these in their garden. So it's really a lovely way to kind of honor the work that people are doing to help us out. And then also just, preserving cultural diversity and things that are important. We are super blessed to have a very diverse community where I live. I've got neighbors around me all over from different parts of the world. The people across the street from me are Nepalese, and they have a wonderful garden in their backyard, and they have kindly over the last few years shared the abundance of their seeds, and we've had pop-ups around Nepalese collections of seeds. And so having that opportunity, I'm checking with my neighbor next to them, which is from China, and hoping that we can have these little like pocket in our collection to really highlight and support people that maybe don't have access to that really special cilantro that's from Nepal, but someone in the community is stewarding it, and we can kind of help get that out to the people who really would most value that. And then the other reason is like seed saving is super fun. It's just, I love my job as a teacher. And I have to say that when I get with the seed people, I am just in my happy space. They're just so full of life and joy. And it's just really fun to get your hands in seeds. And I process seeds with my students. And I'll show you a picture later of us with our squash, and just like it was day after day and the right before school of like cutting up squash, and we just had tons of kids. We're just like, hey, do you need any help processing squash today? And I'm like, yep, get your hands in the bucket. And we just went through 50 zucchini plants one year, and it was super fun. However, if you want to get those seed returns, the thing is you need to have kind of multiple exposures. Back to being a teacher, it's like, I don't know how many times I have to give the same instructions over and over again to get the desired results that I need or the information that I want from a student. And the same thing goes with the public audience. Is like, you're going to need to repeatedly give them information, whether it's on, social media, whether it's signage in your library, whether it's a class. So as I said, I'm really excited about on, our, seed packets that we have at the bottom on that auto wrapper, that you just have the seed saving instructions so people see it there, so they have it when they need it. We've got brochures. Once again, all of our information is open source. It's in the public domain. You can take whatever you need, suit it to reconfigure it, do whatever you need to make it work for your community. We had seed saving posters so you can see the thing on the right. We have a bunch of these, just a small A4, 8.5 by 11s that you can print out. It's tomato time. Let's just print this out and stick it in our library so that people can see that, oh, they might be coming in to get seeds for the next season, but they see that little piece and it just kind of reminds them of, oh, I could do that. And I think that those are just really great reminders of how to kind of move more people into that seed saving realm. We do have a seed saving class. It's called Seed Saving in Community. And it really talks about a yes and approach. So one of the things I want to kind of mention is that, when I first started my seed saving journey, you can see this is actually 100 varieties of beans behind me. I was very much into, preserving those, heirloom and heritage varieties. And then as I got more and more concerned about climate change, I was thinking about, that diversity piece as well. So if you're really interested in saving those traditional varieties, things that have cultural significance, I mean, this is a great book. It's in English only, sadly, but it's The Seed Garden. It's put out by Seed Savers Exchange. This is a wonderful reference book. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It has everything from the population sizes to the size of screens you need to clean stuff. And then if you are interested in the landrace gardening piece, okay, that is those genetically diverse mixes. This is the book I would recommend. It's by Joseph Lofthouse, Landrace Gardening. It's available in French and German and Chinese and Hindi. So that is a wonderful book if you're really wanting to explore how can we adapt our crops to climate change. And then another approach to this whole seed saving piece and getting people interested in returning seeds, kind of it's like the class, as I said, the seed saving class on our Teach a Class page. It's really a choose your own adventure. Are you trying to preserve heirlooms of the past? Are you trying to do this? This is a book from Carol Deppy. It's called Breed Your Own Vegetables. And are you trying to offer heirlooms for the future? Or are you trying to mix it all up and have fun in the adventure of creating new mixes? So those are just three great books in terms of just for your own just sharing with your own library staff or people that are working with you in your community. Increasing donations. So it's one thing to get people to educate them about doing it, but what is that looking like on the ground? Part of it is vetting the locally donated seeds, and then also educating people about what you're offering in the collection. So back in 2014, if you live in the United States, you may have heard about this issue. So back in 2014, I got an email from Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, which was a small little library small little public library that had 65 backyard gardeners that were using their newly opened seed library. And they got a letter from their State Department of Agriculture seed control officer saying, his email basically said that according to his interpretation of the law, they were considered a seed distributor and needed to have a seed distribution license. So they reached out to me because they knew, I'd helped them start their seed library, and asked me if I had heard of any other concerns in Pennsylvania. So I reached out to the other 12 seed libraries in Pennsylvania at the time, and nobody had gotten a similar letter, but we helped craft a response to them, to the State Department of Agriculture, pull together a team, and it kind of started like going through all the state control officers, this, like our seed library is okay. So we ended up working with the seed control officials along with the American like seed trade industry for 2 years, and we worked with them to have a conversation about what the work we were doing and the value that seed libraries were doing. And we were able to come up collectively with a amendment to the recommended uniform state seed law. So that's the law that's the recommendations that go out to all the 50 states saying, how can we navigate seeds so they can go across borders, which wasn't really happening in the case of us because they're local seed libraries. And basically what we came up to was that seed libraries are not commercial industries. They're exempt from any legal action if people happen to, share Wall-Time butternut squash and it ends up being some other type of squash. That's totally fine. However, we did say that we all agreed that we should have signage in our library, just reminding people that this is not a commercial operation. So the important thing in this, and I can't speak to Europe, but I would say that's probably just a good, or Africa or any other part of the world. I would just say the important thing is to not require returns. So that's the main thing, is if you're not requiring a return, you're not in a contractual obligation. So if you are saying to someone, we're lending you these, but please make sure you return something else, then you put yourself in a different legal situation. So we just say, don't, you can invite, you can encourage, but there's no requirement. So that's the main thing about that. The other thing is that we also have a sign that you can download, and this is from our signage page. So this was kind of the language we came up. Many seeds shared by the seed library, were grown by members of our community with love and care that's been done like this for thousands of years. And they, we don't accept patented varieties, and, they may not be exactly as labeled because people are at different levels. And that's kind of the beauty of community. So that's kind of the language that we came up with in our education about that this is not a commercial industry or a commercial adventure. So that's kind of where that is. And we do also have this information in our membership form, which says that we don't accept GMOs or patented varieties. So you can see that from our membership page. So how can you encourage donations and get more people involved? So we have two kind of ways in which we've done this besides offering classes and kind of those multiple exposures through whether it's social media or our signage. And one of the ways is a thing called the One Seed, One Community. And this is a way in which everybody's growing the same seed, and that you walk people through from seed to seed through the growing process, through the seed saving process. This is one I did with my school. So we did it through the whole district. So anybody who wanted to grow this, it's a seed that my neighbor Danny's been growing on our block for like 40 years, and it was his wife's great aunt. And so we've been growing the seed for a while. And so it's just because it has a really nice story and it's completely delicious. It's a way in which to kind of really engage people around the seed saving and feeling like they're part of a larger community. And the way that we do it is we actually get the emails from people, and then we send them emails throughout the growing season. And all of those, for beans, we have those emails are already preset. So you can just take those pre-written emails and then just custom to your needs. So if you go to the One Seed, One Community page, you'll see I think we had a series of like 3 or 4 classes on this where I talked with different people that had done the One Seed, One Community, and they just did it in different ways because they're in different communities and they had different partnerships. And so you can see the resources that different people created and how that might support you if you want to do something like that. And then the other one we have is a grow out program. So this one here, you can see the one on the screen. It's a local bean grow out. So we had the great Aunt Rosie. So we needed more beans grown. So we specifically asked people, would you be willing to donate part of your garden to growing something out for the benefit of the seed library, knowing that most of it is going to be returned to us? And so we have two of these, heirloom varieties. The one I mentioned, the great aunt Rosie's Italian pole bean, and then there's another one, Louis Nicoli, who was an Italian American man who was very influential in the neighboring town in the Italian American community, who passed away about 9 years ago. And that's just something when people know people, there's people that know Louis Nicoli, went to, Louis Nicoli went to their wedding. And so for them to actually come back in touch with that seed was super, super important. So we have a couple people that regularly grow that bean out for us because they have a connection to him and connection to the town. And it's also a really good bean. So all of this kind of go together. And then we also have this where we are having people grow this genetically diverse squash mix that we got originally from growing to seed. And what's nice about these genetically diverse squash mixes is we are inviting promiscuous pollination. So instead of requiring people to hand pollinate them and keep it as a specific variety, we're inviting people to say, if you like kabocha squash, grow the kabocha squash you like, add this to the mix, and then save the seeds from that. And then so you're kind of adding a chapter to that delicious mix, and then save the seeds from the squash that you like the most, and then we're going to continue to kind of move that selection process forward as a community. And we did that selection of squash as a community project, and we had a squash tasting. It was so much fun, and we came together and we processed the squash and we tasted it, and then we kind of from there decided how to do our mix about what would get a little bit more like, well, this did really well against powdery mildew, but this one was really good. So kind of we mix them together and trying to help learn about that. And we're really excited to be hoping to have some citizen science opportunities coming down. And I think that libraries and citizen science and seeds can all go together in a really wonderful way. So look out for that. And kind of with that, like local partners and local seeds. So thinking about like who are some of the partners that could help you, because you're in a library, but who are some of the people in your community that might be available to kind of support the work that you're doing? Maybe you're in a more rural area, maybe there's farmers, maybe there's some non-governmental organizations. As I mentioned, I'm a middle school teacher, so this is a picture of our school garden. And sorry, we had about 40 some, I can't remember, 40 some squash that we had to plant. They were so big. It was like, because you have to let them go, the zucchini that got away. Well, you let the zucchini get away and then you let it sit another 3 months, but you don't have to go that long. It can be like 20 days after you harvest it, but they become as hard as a winter squash in terms of the skin. And so I just had them and I let them sit in my like our storage room in our classroom for another 3 months afterwards. And so they were really hard, and it just helps the seeds develop better. But it was an intentional mix of zucchinis and yellow squashes, and we had some patty pans in there. So our school is separated enough that we don't have to worry about cross-pollination of other varieties that are in that species that can mix with it. But we kept pretty much just to zucchinis and yellow squash and that kind of summer squash thing. Okay. So Seed Saver organizations can also help. Master gardeners are great support. I'm going to be actually meeting with the Master Gardeners coordinators meeting in December. So I'm going to be speaking to them. So if you have any ideas about what you would like from Master Gardeners, feel free to put that in the chat, because then that can help me inform my talk with them. Or feel free to email me at the end at hello@seedlibrarynetwork.org if you have some ideas about how the Master Gardeners have helped you with your program, that have really supported your seed library develop, or ways in which you feel like, I wish the Master Gardeners were able to do this. Then I can kind of take that information and share that with the state and the county coordinators. That would be super, super awesome. And so Beth or Viv, what were did other people put any ideas besides what I listed? I'm just kind of curious in terms of other places to partner with. My chat is off at the moment.
I'm looking to see what people said. I think the Cooperative Gardens Commission is a great partner. Someone mentioned Master Gardener certification.
Mhm.
Someone saying local conservancy organizations. They all sound like good ones.
Oh,
Someone else
botanical
said, oh,
gardens.
go ahead.
Botanical gardens. Yes.
Botanical gardens, yeah. Master
Yeah.
Gardener, Botanical Gardens. Someone else said they have a local organization called Plymouth Pollinators. So, yeah, just looking for who's in your community that you could.
Yeah.
What about partnering between libraries, like a public and a school or a public and an academic or something? I wonder.
Local garden club's great. We have a local zoo that we're building a relationship with. Great. Yeah, awesome. And especially if you're interested in native seed library. Yeah, I was going to say native seed society. I was going to say that the native seed libraries are really nice to see you, Dana. Are a really great place to go. Museums. Okay, great. Wonderful. Yeah. So there's so many different partnerships that can happen out there. And I think that it's really wonderful to see what people are doing because making those connections really strengthen your library, your connection with the community, your ability to reach maybe other people outside of where you were, for example, like I said, we were in the public library for 15 years and now all of a sudden we moved 4 blocks away to the rec center, completely different audience, completely different group of people that come through. And so just having that new partnership has really helped us, reach more people in our community. Yeah, yes, partnering is the key indeed. Now, vetting seeds that are donated. So let's go into the next piece. Oh yeah, the free for your garden sounds great. Yes. Great. Now, vetting donated seeds. So at some point, hopefully you will be lucky enough to start getting a bunch of seed coming in, and you need to decide what to accept and what you don't. As I said, when we first started, we were very much into, preserving heirloom varieties, open pollinated varieties. It was very clear in our, guidelines of what we accepted and what we didn't. So we would get a lot of stuff that kind of ended up getting composted. I mean, there's some things that probably I would still compost, like the cherry pits in a bag. Probably like you got the basic idea, but first off, we're not doing trees and probably need to be cleaned a little bit more and whatever. So some things, maybe you still might toss, but then you might really want to look at and say, what are we interested? What is our mission? If your mission is more around the United Nations sustainability goals of zero hunger, you might be a little bit more broad in what you decide to accept. For example, we do a lot of kale collard mixes. We're very fine with the genetic diversity in that regard because for a lot of people, they're not as concerned about is it a particular variety versus is it going to be good and feed my family. And you need to decide what your goal and what your mission is, what your setting looks like, because to get the population size in an urban garden, if I need to have 25, well, let's say for example, with broccoli, broccoli might need 20 plants to maintain a genetic variety, to maintain the genetic variety. That's kind of a little hard for most urban farmers to do, urban gardeners to do. But when it's a genetic mix, that number is significantly reduced because you already have the genetic diversity within each plant because they're all different. So that can also be a lot easier when you're trying to do seed saving if you're opening for genetic diversity in terms of your population sizes to save from. Obviously, a no-brainer is no invasives. Hopefully, most people in your community know what's, are not going to be turning in invasive, but there might be some things in your community that are ornamental that someone from out of town or someone who's new to gardening may not be familiar. I think about morning glories in the Southwest. If you really have something that's invasive, hopefully the stores aren't selling them, but you can also just double check for yourself if there are any concerns around an invasive plant that might be attractive. It's probably more flowers than food varieties, but like fennel can be pretty can get takeover. So that's like another one that you might want to be like a little concerned about. At least the fennels in our area is kind of invasive. And then if you thinking about how do you want to take those seeds in? I'm going to show you just a couple of examples of intake forms. We don't have an intake form mostly because we know most of our growers, but every now and then we get stuff that we don't know, and then we just decide from that list that I showed you about embrace diversity, is this very likely as labeled? Is it very likely diverse, or is it, possibly diverse? And then if we decide from there, do we just decide to keep it? But then we, like, for example, the sunflowers. We will take the sunflowers, but we're just going to label it with this little diverse mix stamp. So people, and we had this person who saved from 10 different sunflower varieties. I'm like, you saved from 10 different sunflower varieties that you all grew. They are all diverse. Yeah. So just thinking about that, we don't do an intake form, but for some people who are really looking for more specific things, or if you're trying to really, you want a little bit more awareness about those, what's going on with that particular seed, the conditions it was grown under, whether they met the isolation distance and stuff like that, then you can use some of these forms. So this one here is from the Pima County Seed Library. They have an amazing seed library. They have about a 60% return rate. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure out why they have such a high return rate. It might be because they have a pretty extreme climate there. It might be because they have a long tradition of seed saving from the indigenous people in that area. It might be because native seed search has been in that area for a long time. It might be all those factors together. I'm not sure, but they have a really high seed return rate, and they have, I think, 19 seed libraries in their public library system that have seed libraries, and you can borrow with your library card, and then you can get interlibrary seed. Like if the seeds are in another library, they can be sent to your library like you would do an interlibrary loan. Whoa, so awesome. So you can just see some of the things they say, the scientific name, the common name, where did you get these seeds from? Did it come originally from their library? Where they store bought? Or is this something, produce, like the person who scoops the seeds out from, oh, this was a really good squash, I'm going to scoop the seeds out. And then, was it open pollinated or heirloom? Do they know? Not sure. So these are really great questions to ask if you are creating some type of intake form. Here's a couple more forms. So the one from the left is from the Glasgow Seed Library. One of the things I like about theirs is because they are preserving a number of traditional crops, they also were asking what is the name in Scots or some other language that maybe it's from a particular community, and being able to identify that so the people who are from that community would know, oh, I'm really looking for that particular crop and it goes by that name. That's how I know it. And then the one on the right is more from the GRINS is the Rhode Island Native Seed Library Network. So in Rhode Island, and if you go to our website, if you go to our website, seedlibrarynetwork.org, we have a section on other networks. And within there, you could see that Rhode Island has a network of about 14 different native seed libraries. So if you are interested in native seed libraries, you can look at some of the resources that they have developed. This, once again, is their donation form. Once again, they're making sure people that it's native to their ecoregion, and they also have a list of the plants that are native to their ecoregion on their website, so people can identify, and also that it's not a cultivar of a particular native, but it's actually the indigenous species, the native species. And then where did you collect it? That's really important when it comes to natives. And then quality of local seeds. When you get seeds donated, visually inspect them. As I said on that donation form, is it clean and dry? But just take a look. Is it clean and dry? Is it free of bugs? If someone is donating peas or beans, especially if it's in, a volume, we take all of our beans and peas and we freeze them for 3 days. If you are teaching a seed saving class, we always say freeze your beans for 3 to 4 days. 3 days is fine in a freezer, because there are a real thing called bean weevils. And ask me how I know, because one year I was doing a grow a row program with the great Aunt Rosie's Italian pole beans. I had this large jar, and when I came in spring to pack them up in individual envelopes to do our grow a row program, they had all been eaten. I think I saved like 5 beans that weren't completely destroyed, and I was just like, oh. So that's when I learned about the reality of bean weevils. So freeze your beans, freeze your beans, freeze your peas. And then lastly, germination testing. Most libraries don't have the capacity to do germ testing. You don't have the staff, you don't have the time. Seeds fly off the shelf. If you get seeds and they're donated a little bit late, you can use this seed viability chart to kind of help you identify if it's something you want to put into your library, or even to just make a note that this is older seed, plant a little bit extra. The main crops that really lose their viability quickly are the alliums, so onions and leeks. Within 2 years, you're going to get like a 50% germination rate. So when I grow leeks or onions for seed, what I will do is I will take a lot of that seed and I will freeze it. That's the only crop I freeze, so that I'll take some more out next year and then put those in the collection. And I just make a note, frozen until 2025. And then I put it in the collection, so that even though it's a 3 or 4-year-old seed, it's going to be still viable because it was frozen for that time. But for most of the crops that you get, if they're donated by individuals or by companies, they're going to be fine for a while. The thing with the way that seed companies work is once they put it in a envelope and they stamp it, they have to sell it that year. And if they don't, just for viability purposes and to make sure that the reputation and that the consumers are getting viable seeds, they have to discard them at the end of the year. Hence the reason you can often get donations from seed companies, because they're no longer marketable. However, they're still viable. In the real world, I don't know any community in their right mind that at the end of the year throws all their seeds out. We did not survive as a species by throwing all of our seeds out at the end of the year. But from a commercial perspective, it's got some value. Okay, and then as I said, the true to type or mixed, once again, I'm going to be sharing with you, it'll be in one of the upcoming slides, as well as the information coming out about walking you through a process. So you're going to do this on your own about what are we willing to accept, what is going to be our donation process. Are we only going to take things that are true to type? That means if it has this particular characteristic, it's going to come out with those particular characteristics. Or are we open to genetic diverses? The main thing that I say is label, label, label. If you have something or are offering something that is not likely to come out as like the wall-time butternut squash, label it. Just be like, this is what the parent was, this is what the mama was, but we don't really know what it's going to be like, because we're clearly telling you that it is a mix. And then people can make up their own mind if that works for them or not. So corn and brassicas, so brassicas being broccoli and kale and collards, corn is wind pollinated. The pollen can travel for like half a mile, maybe not as much in an urban space because there's houses and stuff, but it can still travel quite a distance. Brassica is insect pollinated. Those insects will go and find your plant. So those are really hard to maintain a variety. We accept them, but we just label all of them diverse mix. Same thing with squash, melons, and cucumbers. People can maintain these varieties, but they need to know how to hand pollinate it. And that means going out the night before where the flower is closed, taping it shut before it opens, going out in the morning, putting in the mail from also when that was closed. So these are both closed, tape shut. You go open in the morning, early in the morning, open up the female, open up the male, put the mail inside, close it up, tape it back shut, and then mark it. So it's a doable process, but not everybody knows that they need to do all of those steps. So we do a lot of, like I said, we have the diverse mix. And this is just allowing for more people to participate, because when we ask people to hand pollinate, and I still do some of that, but to meet the need that we have in our community around food security, we're open to more things. Like I said, we started with, like, this is our cucumber mix. So I have a cucumber mix that was from going to seed. And this is a very genetically diverse mix of cucumbers. We are inviting promiscuously pollinated mixes from other cucumbers. People are adding in their own cucumbers that they like to the mix, and that becomes our collection. But it's about labeling it so people know that. And once again, you can download that Embrace Diversity poster, or this. We also have a lot of resources on seed swaps. If you have a seed swap, that's a great way to launch your collection or increase your collection by bringing people together to bring the seeds in their collection. that's also a wonderful way to find out who is saving seeds in your in your community and talk to them, because anybody who's saving seeds is going to have an abundance that they can then put you on their radar. And the thing that I want to say is once you get someone to save seeds, they are on your team. They are on Team Seed Saver. They will continue to save seeds and donate. When we've brought people in to do things like the One Seed, One Community, and they actually return seeds, or the Grow Row program, they actually return seeds, they become part of our regular donators. That's something just to think about. Now, the other thing that I want to mention, this is the one kind of caveat in terms of being open to genetic mixes, is the zucchinis, courgettes, the summer squash, spaghetti squash. That's all the same species. It's also the same. So if you grow a zucchini and a spaghetti squash together, the insects can bring the pollen from one plant to the other. It'll still look like a zucchini, but then next year when you go to plant it, it might be very different texture, because a zucchini and a spaghetti squash, I don't know what that's going to taste like. I mean, it might be good, but it's going to be like odd for many people. It's going to be an unusual flavor. So, but the main thing to note is that the gourds are the same species, and the gourds have a bitter gene. So we don't accept zucchini, summer squash, or spaghetti squash from people that we don't know, because of that rare chance that they might have also been growing gourds. So just that's the one main caveat with seed saving in terms of accepting seeds from people. Okay. And then lastly, this is the questionnaire that is on the slideshow, but we'll also send it out to you to kind of walk you through your own process. What's your purpose of saving seeds? I mean, of getting seeds donated? How does this align with your mission? What categories of seeds are you going to accept? Are you just going to do locally grown? Would you take commercial donations from people? Do people need to grow, organically? What are you open to? So it walks you through about, I think, 9 or 10 questions to kind of help you formulate what your procedure is. And then, as I said, you can see some of the resources that we have to kind of support you with signage and everything. Okay. And then last thing I want to say is on our website, we have all the signs you can download. Repeated exposure is really important. Once again, once someone returns seeds, they are on board. They are part of Team Seed Saver, part of Team Seed Library. Share your best practices. So if you create something or you have resources, on most of our pages on the seedlibrarynetwork.org, at the bottom of the page, you'll see these 2 links. The left one is for community tips and resources. So these are resources that other people have shared about. That's how we found the auto wrapper, as someone that linked it. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing ever. So on the left-hand side are people's resources that they have uploaded. On the right-hand side is a place for you to put your resources so that other people can find the amazing work that you are doing. So we're really hoping that this is a community-inspired, community-created collection of resources. And then lastly, once again, if you have a seed library and you're not sure if you're on the map, go to our website, seedlibrarynetwork.org. Go to the Explore the Map page to see if you're on there, because you might have forgotten you did it. And then if not, go to the Seed Library map and add yourself. And you can find us at seedlibrarynetwork.substack.com and subscribe. Our forum is there. You can also just get the forum link from our website, and you can follow us on Instagram at Seed Libraries. And then the LinkedIn is on there. It's kind of hard to find, so it wasn't labeled. And then I'm going to switch it off to questions, and Beth and Viv, you can kind of help with that piece there.
Absolutely. And wow, this is very, very active webinar chat.
I know. It's like, I'm gonna turn
Yeah,
off.
it was like nonstop. That was really awesome. We do have quite a bit of questions for you. There's about 8 of them, so we're gonna quickly go through them. Hopefully we have time to answer all of them. The first one is from Becca. Rebecca, how do you update your information on the map? The contact information from my library is no longer current.
Oh, email me. Just email me. Yes. hello@seedlibrarynetwork.org. And just so you know, when you do put yourself on the map, we update that manually. So it happens like like the person's doing it today or did it this morning. So it might be another couple weeks till it goes live. but just email me at hello@seedlibrarynetwork.org and say, this is our old information or this is where we're located so I can easily find you and change it.
All right. And then next question is from Elena. Elena, at your self-serve station, is there a camera? One library in our area had their area cleared out in whole and in part, and we're trying to find solutions.
Yeah, so we are a self-serve. They definitely mentioned to us a little bit of concern because we just moved our location about a month and a half ago. And they expressed like, oh, we hope you don't get cleaned out. So far that hasn't happened to us. I would say one thing to do is if it's possible to have your seed library in a more visible, like closer, like visible within eyesight of the reference desk, that would be helpful. And I know that's not always possible, or I don't know if you're in a public library or whatever, or library that has that, but if you're able to be close to someone who's on desk, that will minimize that. And then also just having clear signage, because definitely it happens. I mean, my personal library at my house, last year I had it completely emptied out 3 times. And I was just like, you do not need to be taking a jar of zucchini plants, like a jar of zucchini seeds. Like no, obviously you do not have a garden if you just stole an entire jar of zucchini plants, because nobody's going to like you in your neighborhood if you plant that many zucchinis.
Okay. Next question is from John David. What was the name for the program that prints the labels?
Oh, so it's on our, I think I can't remember which page it's on. It's on our envelopes page. So if you go to seedlibrarynetwork.org, you go to envelopes, and then you're going to scroll half the way down the page, and then there's a webinar about the auto seed library, the auto seed wrapper. It's called the auto seed wrapper, and then you can find it from there. And the French and the Spanish and the Portuguese version will be coming soon. I just need to get the A4 piece. If anybody knows how to format, like it is a really crazy tricky, like with formulas on a spreadsheet. But if anyone has that capacity, I did ask the person who created it if they could redo it, but A4 is coming up shortly in Spanish, French, and Portuguese. But yeah, thank you for putting that in there, Beth.
Okay, next question is from Bonnie. Can images or QR code be added to the C label wrapper?
Yes, I wish I had an example of one. But yes, you can put a QR code at the bottom. So it's where it's the bottom field. We have just I usually cut it off, but you can put in like your URL, you can put in a QR code. I didn't put it in here, but one of the things we've done in the past is when we've had some special things, for example, one of the Love in the Mist was from a neighbor's grandmother who had passed away. And I did a little voice recording of her. And then I just made sure I put it on, I made a QR code for that voice recording. So when people got it, they could read a little bit about it, but then they could actually hear Erica talking about her grandmother, and every time she moves, the plants come with her, and it's like her grandmother just keeps hanging up. So that's like QR code can go on the bottom as well, or pictures. Yes.
Perfect. All right, next question. It's from Melody Rees. I recently talked to a seed library that does seed cleaning parties where they use their colanders and box fans to clean seeds that will go into the library. Is how to run a session like that a future possibility of resources to be available on the site?
I would love to, and maybe Seed Savers Exchange has some ideas on how to do that too. But she's the Seed Savers. Yes, I love that idea. We did a recent class that was a hands-on class that was an hour seed saving class for Master Garden. It was myself and a Master Gardener for the local Master Gardeners. It was offered through the Master Gardeners, and it was all about seed saving, but it was more through seed cleaning, and that was an amazing class. I didn't know how we were going to do all of what I normally do in 2 hours in one, but we did. Yeah. So I think that there's ways to do that, and it can be really, really powerful because we've also just done seed cleaning parties, but you can do a seed cleaning party, bringing people together, but you can also do a seed cleaning class. So there's different ways to do it.
Okay, moving on to the next question from Melissa Henderson. Is there perhaps some wording to put on the packets a disclosure of sorts like, due to the nature of wind and seed pollination and other factors, the seeds you get may not be the exact variety as labeled. Something along those lines.
Yeah,
Could
so
you help figure that out?
yeah, so I would say first off, with the things that were in that on that embrace diversity poster that I referenced a few times that said these are very likely as labeled, you don't need to put it on those. I think one thing to do is just if you think that it's likely diverse, you can put that in there, but a lot of people don't read the small print. That might this is an easier way, but we have this section here that just says notes. So you could put that as a general note there that people see. And once again, you can highlight it or something. I just feel like a lot of people don't read a lot of information. And the more visible you can make it, whether it's a signage in your library and just multiple touch points so people get that message multiple times.
And the next question is from Maggie. Our library is very concerned about patrons getting sick from donated seeds varieties and that we're unable to fully vet. Any advice on how to approach these? We are tempted to just continue buying seeds every year from reliable sources, but of course the goal is to be a self-sustaining seed library.
Yeah, that's a great question. I really appreciate you asking. I know it's something that comes up, it's come up over the years. And I just want to kind of offer to the people that you need to respond to that question, which is there are thousands of seed libraries around the world. I mean, France just did their own census a year, like 2 years ago. They have 950. Czechoslovakia has over 200. Moldova has about 100. There's easily 1,000 in the United States, and Canada has hundreds. Like there's so many seed libraries, and there have not been any incidents of people getting sick from borrowing the seeds. The only one I said that I would be the least bit concerned about, and it's a very, very small probability, is the spaghetti squash, zucchini, summer squash thing that someone might have a gourd that got cross-pollinated. The only other one that's kind of weird that could be like not tasty would be carrots. If someone saved carrot seeds and there was Queen Anne's lace, which is the wild relative, it's not going to be poisonous. It's just going to be woody, So that's not an inedible. It's just a not edible. Like, but so I think that concern is, it's an important one to bring up and address, but it's not something that's really going to cause people that you're not going to have issues. And there might be sometimes where there's a weird thing that did, like the zucchini that got squashed with a spaghetti squash. That even happens in commercial stuff. Every now and then I've seen some farmers where I'm like, I know what that was. That was some self-save seed, So
Okay. Thank you. And then the next one is also from Melissa Henderson. Is there another term other than diverse mix? This term is confusing, implies a mix of all different types of something, like wildflowers seed mix would be diverse.
Well, I think you have to look at the larger label because the mix is so, like on this one here, it's it's fava beans and then it's a mix. So it's all fava beans, but it's a mix of fava beans versus wildflower mix, which implies multiple species, where this one it gives the species name on it. And then, and it says on the label a diverse mix of fava beans. And we had originally, when we were doing this, when maybe 5 or 6 years ago, our labeling was crossed, but I think crossed often has kind of more of a negative connotation, and we're really wanting to embrace that diversity. So we decided to go with diverse instead of crossed. But you have to go with what feels right for your situation. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So next one is from Anonymous. How long does freezing extend the viability of
Alliums.
allium seeds?
Yeah, so basically my understanding is, as long as they're frozen, they're kind of in just sleeping stage. And so I keep them in there for multiple years. I mean, the nice thing about seed libraries is we tend not to have to worry too much about seed viability because most of the seeds go too quickly that we don't have to worry about them sitting around for a long time. And yeah, so they will be fine within lifetime, and they can be in there, 10, 15 years, whatever, frozen. But just once you take them out, then you're kind of putting them back on the clock of now they're starting to tick. And I don't freeze anything else. So in terms of like my seed storage, it's just that because of the viability concern.
All right, next one is from Sean. How can we build relationship with farmers and the industrial uh, uh, agronomy? I can't pronounce it right now. Agronomy sectors in our area.
Uh-huh. That's a great question. I mean, I think it depends on where you are and I think whether you're just going down and like meeting farmers at a farmer's market, or if you're looking at a larger scale, industry model, I think the larger scale industry model, people are doing a very different type of work that's important, that's, creating a lot of food. They're probably not as interested in, the smaller scale seed libraries, but there might be local farmers that you could more connect with that are also concerned about feeding their community. And I think that those are just natural ways to kind of connect and talk to them and see where you have shared value and shared alignment. And sometimes, maybe they even have bought extra seed that they can't plant because as a farmer, they need to know that what they're planting is going to all go to seed, but they, might have a high enough germination rate for a home gardener who has more eyeballs on the field. Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, last question from the Q&A panel or list. Any ideas for tracking inventory?
Um, that's a great question. We don't track. And that's only because we're super busy. We're super busy. But I know people are. I just had someone email me last week about, so it's a question that comes up from time to time about how do you track it. And I think it has to do with, do you have the bandwidth to do that, the time, the resources? It's definitely something I think is a question as the network, we would like to offer something like that because there's enough people that ask that question. And there are people that are doing it. So I should probably just create a page on highlighting who's doing inventories. There are some people that just have it as a spreadsheet and it gets updated, X amount of time. There are other people, for example, as I mentioned, the Pima County people in Tucson, Arizona area where they have everything inventoried with barcodes, and that's all checked out through their library card system. So there's definitely different ways to do it. I think it depends on what's your purpose. What is the value that you're getting at it? Are you doing this because you are just trying to track what's being used? Are you doing this to kind of show donors or whatever that you are providing X amount of value? Are you doing it because you want people to be able to see what's in the library at any time so they can come down and they know? So I think you have to kind of know what your purpose is to kind of figure out what your plan is. And if you come up with any solutions, email me.
Great. I think we've gone through the Q&A, the questions from the Q&A list, and I'm going to hand it back to Beth.
Hi, yes, there's a couple questions that I tried to grab in the chat that came through. They might have been answered. There's so much chat going on, I'm not sure, but I figured it would be good to state them here. They're probably pretty easy answers. Someone asked, my library has a great seed donation form. Is there a place we could share our template?
Yes, 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 yes. So as I was saying, if you go to the seedlibrarynetwork.org, and then you'd look at the different, like starting a library versus maintaining a library, there's different tabs, like signage or seed return. And then go to the one that makes most sense. And then at the very bottom, you'll see what I was saying, this part right here, which is the community tips versus add your resources. So in the add your resource piece, put it in there. And then that means it would be available for other people to see as well.
Okay, I think I just shared that I think it's the Airtable link. I think I just shared that in the chat, if I got the right link.
We have like there are a
Um,
lot of different air tables on there. So, but if it gets on there somewhere, someone will
be there.
someone.
Let's see. The other question was, uh, has anyone had success getting seeds donated by seed distributors, or have you had better luck with the hardware stores or other similar sellers? I think you covered some of this, but I don't know if you wanted a quick
Yeah, I
response on
think
that.
yeah, I mean, there's different ways. Obviously, it's nice to build a relationship with a local hardware store or something like that. What I would do is I would make sure you put it on a repeating calendar reminder about what ask, and then also asking them, well, like, when is the best time for us to approach you? And that you kind of put a calendar reminder that gives you a little notification, oh, this is my time to reach out to, X nursery, and that you have a relationship and you build it, and that they know that that you're on their list. So that's, I think, one way to kind of increase those local donations from a
Mhm.
local growers. Yeah.
I think this is really similar question. My library system doesn't allow us to solicit donations, so it makes it really hard to get free seeds from businesses since we can't be the ones asking for them. So any tips on that? So pinging off that.
Well, if you are open to not commercial, like local donations, that might be the way that you really go, where you're like, okay, well, since we can't ask for commercial donations, what is the way for us to connect with the local seed savers? And
Yeah.
once again, if you can find those local seed savers, whether it's by hosting a seed swap or attending a local seed swap and going out to the people who actually are putting stuff on the table and be like, hey, we would love seeds donated, then that I think will really kind of move your dial forward on that one.
That makes sense. And the last one I have is just sort of going back to things you've said over and over, but it's good to repeat and share this person's story. My branch has a native seed library, and we received a grant this year to install a native pollinator garden and planted 100 natives in front of the library in September. That's so exciting. Excited to be able to collect seeds in years to come. How can we be added to the native seed library page on the website? I think I have the map link here. I'll share, but if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, yes. So by all means, email me at hello@seedlibrarynetwork.org. And then also just for people that are interested in doing the native seed library, we do have a page that's specific around native seed libraries. There's also an amazing organization up in Ottawa that does like the Ottawa Wildflower Seed Library. And I think that they're actually all just like 100% mail. I have to go check. I met with them a couple months ago, but I think that they just mail stuff, but they mailed like 10,000 seed packets. I mean, it was kind of crazy. Yeah. And even,
Wow, well,
even if you just have a drawer, like, I mean, so I think that that's one of the things that we need to think about is in our library collections, maybe we're not focused on, like, for example, as I mentioned, food security and, food hunger is a really, prominent concern in our community. And yet we do have flowers and we do have, a drawer that's dedicated to natives. So that might be something where maybe our whole collection isn't, but we can at least have some aspect, where we highlight that and people. And the point is that for example, like where we live, I mean, this isn't a native, we did have a native person who kind of ran that collection for a while,
mhm,
but with the flowers, there was someone who had taken over a little kind of, it's called the flower triangle. It's a little space between, three different roads.
yeah.
And they were just growing all these flowers. And I just happened to be driving by one day when the woman was out there weeding. And I just like, can we come and harvest flowers at the end of the season? She's like, absolutely. And I got her name. And we just went out with a team of volunteers one day and just collected a whole bunch of flowers. And that was a wildflower mix. And I mean, but they weren't natives, but it was just like, that's also a way to think about in terms of partners, that there might be people that have these larger spaces of flower collections, whether they're natives or not, that would work well in your area.
We got one last
All right,
question.
Yes.
go for it.
Is there an optimum time to reach out to seed companies and distributors for seed donations? If so, when?
Yes, I do have that information on I think it's our seed donation page, but basically they have to get rid of everything at the end of the year. So that's kind of the best time. But I highlighted on there about when specifically to do that. on that webpage. Yes.
Great. All right. All right, Beth.
All right. Well, thank you. We went right up to the wire. I'm so glad we made this an hour and a half long because there was plenty of conversation, and I encourage you all to check out the websites, reach out to Rebecca. Her email is in the chat. This has been recorded and we will send it out and it will be posted on our website where our other webinars are. We will be doing more webinars in the future. So just stay tuned. I will put this in the chat so you can follow up. And thank you again, Rebecca. This was so useful and we had a lot of people participating. Thank you all for
I know, I wish I
came
could have
and-
followed the chat the whole time, but I was like,
It was so much. So I appreciate it. It was very crowdsourced, people helping each other and supporting each other along the
That's
way.
the beauty of this. The reason why the seed library thing has grown so much is just because of the generosity of the people in the community. You know, I created a how to do, you know, like a seed saving brochure and gave it to the other seed libraries. And next thing I know, I'm getting it back in Chinese and you know, Vietnamese, because that was the community that they needed to support. And so I feel like it's just grown because of all the generosity and the great brains all together with a big passion.
Definitely.
Fantastic.
Definitely. Well, thank
Well,
you
thank
all.
you
Everyone
again.
have a
Thank you,
great rest of your
everybody.
day.
Thank
Ciao,
you.
ciao.
Bye.